Hey, it's Katie, and welcome back to my BookTube channel. For today's video, I wanted to talk about all of the series that I really need to finish. So these are series that I have read like 1 or 2 books from, and I own more from these series, or I know I want to finish them at some point, but I still have, for some reason, not gotten around to it. And so this is a video to kind of help hold me accountable so I can finish some of these series before starting all of the other ones that I want to start. So these are in no particular order, but I will tell you guys a little about the first book or what the series is about, and then I'll let you know how many I have left to read. So let's jump into it. The first series I want to talk about is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater, and I own all of these, so there's absolutely no excuse for why I have not finished this series, but I have read The Raven Boys and Dream Thieves, so I at least am halfway done. But then the other 2 I need to read, and I actually have them on my TBR for June, are Blue Lily Lily Blue and The Raven King. So hopefully I will read these this month and at least check one of these series off of my list. But Raven Boys is a series that I, for some reason, cannot summarize very well, even though I have read 2 of these books. I don't know why it's so hard for me to describe. Probably because I didn't even fully understand the world until book 2, and I'm sure there's still a lot more for me to learn. But what I do know is that this book follows Blue, who every year she stands next to her clairvoyant mother as the soon-to-be-dead walk past, and she's usually never able to see them until this year, where she sees a boy who is about her age walk past her. The boy's name is Gainsey, and he is a student at the local private school. And Blue typically tries to stay away from any of the boys from this private school. They are known as the Raven Boys, and they can only mean trouble. But after that situation, Blue is drawn to Gainsey, and she's not quite sure why, but he is actually on a quest with 3 other Raven Boys, Adam, Ronan, and Noah. For as long as she can remember, Blue has always been told that she will be the reason for her true love's death, and she's never really believed in true love, so she doesn't think that's going to be a problem, but the more time she spends with the Raven Boys, the more she's not so sure. And this series is so well written. The world is so interesting, and like I said, I didn't even fully understand the world until the second book, so I didn't enjoy the first one as much as I would have liked because I was kind of confused a lot. But by the second book, Dream Thieves, I was so fascinated by the world. I understood it a lot more, I understood the characters a lot more, and I also really loved that we got to see more of Ronan and Noah in the second book because we didn't see as much of them in book 1, and they're some of my favorite characters from this series, so I really enjoyed that, and it left off with this huge cliffhanger, and I immediately went out and bought the last 2 books in the series, so I, again, have no excuse for not reading these, and hopefully I get to these this month because I really want to know what happens. The second series I need to finish is the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard, and I read this almost a year ago. I read it last summer, and I remember loving this book. I felt so betrayed by some of the things that happened in this book, and I was like so fired up about it, so the fact that I felt that many emotions about a book, I have no idea why I haven't finished this series or at least read another book, because I do own the second book, Glass Sword, so I don't know why. I think it's because for most of these series, I read the first book in the series forever ago, and it's been so long that I feel like I need to reread the first book before I continue, and that's just kind of a commitment. I don't really reread books a lot, so maybe that's why I haven't finished a lot of these, but that's kind of on me. I should be prepared. But I remember loving this, and I think another reason I haven't continued this series is because I've heard very mixed opinions. A lot of people think that the series got worse after the first book, so that does make me a little bit nervous to continue. But I remember really loving Victoria Aveyard's writing, so I do really want to finish this. And for those of you that don't know, this is a world where everybody is divided by the color of their blood. So our main character, Mare, and her family have red blood, and those are the people who are a lot lower in society. And then there's people with silver blood who are a lot higher up and wealthier, and those are people who have a lot of magical abilities. Mare ends up stealing things to help her family survive and get food and all of that, but there's this twist of fate that results in her ending up in front of like the king and queen and a whole bunch of really important people, and while she's there, she finds out that she has powers even though her blood is red. In order to hide this impossibility, the king forces her to pretend to be this long-lost princess and betroths her to his younger son. So as you can imagine, a lot is going down. You have this world where there is like a hierarchy, and it's kind of messed up, honestly. And then you have people who have really cool powers. You have the royalty aspect. You have the fact that she is now betrothed to somebody even though they don't know each other, and she has to play this role and pretend to fit in. And there's so many different elements that I absolutely loved about this first book. And I really need to finish this series. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed Victoria Aveyard's writing. And I really should continue because I remember being very fired up. So I don't know what's wrong with me. I really don't finish a lot of these series, but hopefully you guys can help me change that and remind me to read these books because I need some help. Up next, I have An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. And I also own A Torch Against the Night, which is the second book in the series. But my cop-out reason for why I haven't finished this yet is because the fourth book just came out, but it came out in hardcover, and I own paperbacks. So I'm trying to wait until that one comes out in paperback as well, so I can buy the last two books in the series and kind of binge it all. Because, again, it's been almost a year since I read An Ember in the Ashes, so I just want to wait until I can get my hands on the other two, and then I will just reread this and binge the rest of the series. So that's my excuse for why I haven't read it yet. But for those of you that don't know, in this book, there is the Martial Empire where defiance is met with death. All of a sudden, Laya's brother is arrested for treason, and she is determined to save her brother, so she ends up finding this rebel group, essentially, and she makes a deal with them that if she helps them out and decides to sneak in to this military academy pretending to be a servant, I think, or a maid, something like that, and gives them information that they want, they will in return help rescue her brother. At that academy, Laya ends up meeting Elias, who is one of their most promising soldiers, but also secretly their most unwilling. They soon realize that their destinies are intertwined and that their choices change the fate of the Empire forever. I just remember being completely enamored by Sabaa Tahir's writing. I typically do a lot of skimming when I read books, especially during really long descriptive passages, but for some reason, even when Sabaa Tahir was describing certain things in the world, I read every single word. I don't know what it was, but I was just so captivated by her writing. It was written so beautifully, and I remember loving it so much. And this was also one of the first books I read told from dual perspectives. So that was another reason I really loved it, and I really wanted to continue. So I am excited for when the fourth book comes out in paperback because I will definitely be buying the last two books and hopefully binging it very soon after. After that, we have the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. And again, I read this book a very long time ago, but I remember being very disappointed by this. I don't remember too much of why. I know that this book involves our main character, Selena, I think is her name, and she is this assassin, and I know that she was in a prison essentially for a very long time, but she's given the chance to compete to be the king's champion. So basically she has to fight against all these like assassins and thieves and all of these really like strong, conniving people. And if she ends up beating, I think, 23 of them, she will become the king's champion and be able to win her freedom. And from what I remember, I think she's the only girl as well. She also makes a lot of very interesting relationships in this world. Like the synopsis says, the crown prince will provoke her, the captain of the guard will protect her, and a princess from a faraway land will befriend her. And then there's also something evil in the castle, and there's a whole different thing that happens with that. And I was honestly really confused with what happened with that, so maybe that's why I didn't like it too much as well. But I remember thinking that the romance in this book kind of happened really fast, and I wasn't really here for it because she's supposed to be this really cold-hearted assassin who's been locked in this prison for so long, but I felt like she warmed up to other people very fast. Especially because I do know that I think there's like 7 other books in this series, so I felt like it was really quick considering there were so many other books. So for some reason, the pacing and all of that just didn't quite work for me, but I did enjoy it enough that I do want to continue the series because I know a lot of people talk about how it does get a lot better, especially over the next couple books. So I will probably end up continuing the series. It's just kind of a big investment because there's a lot of other books. Also, I need your guys' help because this is the only one I own, and it's in paperback, but I just found a box set that's all in hardcover, and I can't decide if I want to continue getting them in paperback or just like repurchase the first one on hardcover and get the rest of the series in hardcover because I keep finding all those like fun bookish like Etsy shops where they make unique dust jackets for the series and they look stunning, and I want like cool dust jackets like that. I feel like I don't invest in hardcovers enough to be able to do that, but this is a good opportunity for that. So let me know if you guys think I should get the hardcovers or the paperbacks, and if I should get the hardcovers, let me know what your favorite store is to get those really cool unique dust jackets because I really want to try to get some of those. Up next is a series by one of my favorite authors, and that is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. And I read this first one in October. I read it for Hollow Reads, and I did a book review, so I will maybe remember to link that in the description if you want to check it out. But it really caught me off guard because I typically don't read like thrillers, mysteries, historical fiction, any of that, and that's kind of all wrapped up in this story. So I wasn't really sure how much I would like it, but it sounded interesting, and I ended up really, really enjoying it, and it was my first Kerri Maniscalco book, and of course I went on to read Kingdom of the Wicked, which I'm absolutely obsessed with, one of my favorite books of all time, but this is what got me into her writing in the first place. And then I do own the second book, which is Hunting Prince Dracula, and I just have not had a chance to read it yet. But this is a completed series, so I don't own them all, but since it's completed, I don't really have a reason for me to not have read them. So I don't know what's wrong with me, but I did read this for Hollow Reads, so maybe I will save this for Hollow Reads this year because it kind of keeps up with a similar spooky vibe, and it's another mystery, and it's really cool actually. So maybe that's what I'll do, and that'll be my inspiration. And hopefully by then I will have the other 2 books in the series, and maybe I'll just binge it all for Hollow Reads. I could do like a reading vlog or something. Let me know if you guys would be interested in that. I love that I'm making plans right as I'm filming this, but we'll see what happens. But I really do want to read that series as well. The next series is one that I really need to finish because I finally own all of the books in this series, and that is Cruel Prince by Holly Black. And I recently was gifted The Wicked King, and then I found Queen of Nothing in the bargain section of a bookstore that I love to go to. So I finally own them all, and I really need to read them. But I think the reason I'm a little hesitant is because I didn't enjoy The Cruel Prince as much as I felt like I should have. Everybody really loves this series and really hypes it up, but I honestly wasn't too invested in The Cruel Prince or the characters, so I'm not really too sure. I do remember that the ending, like the last 50 pages or so, I was definitely invested in what was happening, so that's probably a good enough reason to continue, especially now that I do own them all. So I really do hope that I end up liking the rest of the series more than this, but I think the main reason I haven't read it yet is because I'm not really too sure if I'll like it. So if you have read this series and you really like it, please let me know. Convince me in the comments of why I should read it. No spoilers, obviously, but just give me some motivation to read this series because I really want to be a part of this fandom. I don't feel like I can be yet. So yeah, go ahead and comment why I should read this and why you guys love it so much. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I just realized that I didn't explain to you guys what this was about. I'm sure that you've seen this book everywhere and you probably know what it's about, but even though I've read it, the only thing I remember is that we have a main character named Jude who lives in the mortal world, and then I think something happened with her mother when she was really young, and so this guy came and took her and her sister into this fairy court, I'm pretty sure. Yes, the High Court of Fairy. And even 10 years later, Jude only really wants to belong here. She doesn't feel like she belongs. Everybody is kind of mean to her because, all of the Fae, they kind of hate humans. So the fact that her and her sister are there, they just really don't like them and they're very cruel, and all she wants is to belong. I also know that she really wants to win her place at court, but that is very hard for her to do, especially because one of the people who hates her the most is Prince Carden. There's also a lot of trickery and bloodshed and a lot of darker tones to this book as well, which I actually really did enjoy. So I feel like this is a good fall wintry series. So again, maybe I'll wait to read this one till it gets a little colder, but I just need some convincing. Moral of the story. And then last but not least, we have a series that I actually have read the first 2 books in, and I really, really enjoyed them. But this is another one where the last book had just recently come out, and it came out in hardcover, and I own the rest of the series in paperback, so I'm waiting for the opportunity to purchase the last one, and then I do plan on binging the rest of this series. But the series that I'm talking about is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is another very hyped up series, and I have read A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury, and I really, really did enjoy these. I enjoyed the second book a lot more than this one for sure. But I think this is a really good book as well, and it's also a Beauty and the Beast retelling, at least in book 1, which I did not even know until I got a good chunk of the way through this book, and I finally put it all together. But I can see why everybody loves this world. It's definitely really steamy in this book, which is probably why I like all this. And I have a lot of tabs in this book. All of my favorite quotes, favorite moments, just so when I reread it, I'll be able to, pinpoint all my favorite sections and kind of get excited. But I do really, really like this series, and that's kind of my only excuse for not reading it yet, is because I can't get A Court of Silver Flames until it comes out in paperback. I feel like I'm really picky when it comes to what my books look like, so that's kind of limiting myself, but I think it's okay. I think I'll really appreciate when they all match. Hopefully they don't change the covers again, because they just redid them. So I'd be really sad if the 5th one did not look like these books. But anyway, let me tell you what this is about if for some reason you haven't heard about it already. So A Court of Thorns and Roses follows 19-year-old Feyre, who has to hunt to keep her family alive. She ends up killing a wolf in the woods, and this really scary creature comes knocking on her door demanding retribution. She ends up being dragged to this treacherous magical land that she's really only heard about in legends. While she's there, Feyre discovers that her captor is not a beast, and he's actually one of the dangerous immortal fairies who once ruled her world. As she adapts to her new home, her feelings for Tamlin change from this icy feeling to a little bit of fiery passion as she kind of works through all the lies that she's been told. But something is not right in the fairylands, and there is this wicked shadow growing, and Feyre has to help Tamlin figure out how to stop it to save his world and hers as well. But once again, I really love this series, and one day I will finally finish it, and then I will try not to avoid spoilers anymore, because it's really hard to stop seeing spoilers about all of these books that are so hyped up, because I know everybody wants to talk about it, but I feel like I can't go on certain social media platforms when like the new books come out, because I'm always really scared I'm going to ruin the whole series for myself. But I think that I am really going to enjoy it. And also, I thought that A Court of Silver Flames was the last book, but I think there's still more books coming out in this series, so it's just going to be a lot of torture trying to wait for these new books to come out, but I think it'll be worth it. Alright, so those are all of the series that I have read a few books from, but I, for some reason, have not finished yet. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing me talk about these, and please hold me accountable if you know that I have not read some of these yet. I would really appreciate a reminder and a little bit more motivation, because I have no excuse for a lot of these. So please remind me, convince me. If you have read some of these, let me know why you love it so much. I would really appreciate it. And please like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you desubscribe, please click the notification bell so you know when I upload next. Thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in my next video.